Hey students, this is Jordan. Just want to drop in and give you a preview for tomorrow's message. This will be week 2 in our series, Jesus' Most Confounding Statements. Last week we talked about how when Jesus is speaking in the Gospels, we see, we talked about how if you've got one of those Bibles that have the red letters, then you know that the red letters indicate when Jesus was talking. And when Jesus is talking, oftentimes some of the things that he says seems very confusing or very confounding or very almost contradictory. And so we're looking at a few of those passages, a few of those verses every single week in the series. And last week we looked at one particular one, and now we're looking at a passage out of John 3. And within that passage is a very familiar verse. And that verse is John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. If you know a verse in the Bible, if you've memorized a verse in the Bible, it's probably John 3:16, right? And many people, even if they're not Christians, are kind of familiar with John 3:16. But are we familiar with the story surrounding that passage or surrounding that verse? And that's the story of Nicodemus, the story of when Nicodemus, who was a Pharisee, comes to Jesus at night and begins to ask him things and begins to seek out information and knowledge because he realizes that Jesus is a great teacher and there's obviously something more to him. And the confounding statement that Jesus mentions to Nicodemus, or the thing that we're going to dive into, is when he tells Nicodemus, "Truly I say unto you, unless you are born again, you cannot enter into the kingdom of heaven." And Nicodemus struggles with this. He struggles with, what does Jesus mean by born again? And he even tells Jesus, how can I enter into my mother's womb a second time and be born again? And Jesus goes on to explain, you're born by water, but you're also born by the Spirit in order to be a part of the kingdom of heaven. And so we're going to dive into this thought of what does it mean to be born again spiritually, as Jesus is indicating, as he is talking about. What does that look like? What does that mean for us, and how are we born again? How does that accomplish through the Spirit? And we see how Jesus is establishing his kingdom here on earth as when he came and came to die on the cross, but he also came to establish the kingdom of heaven. And so in order to be a part of that, we must be born again. So we're going to look at that tonight, or this Wednesday. We're going to look at that in our message, and I hope you'll come. I hope to see you there. I'm excited about this message. I know it will be good for many of you, and it's been already good and challenging for my own life. So look forward to seeing you, and can't wait.